Well, it's time to get our nets ready to go in the water. It is January the 9th. Got them out this evening, pressure washed all of our nets good, went through them all, and I got about 7 or 8 that's got holes in it I've got to get fixed up. This is a bad one right here. I'm going to show y'all a little bit about what you need and how we repair these, get them ready to get dipped. We sitting in the living room tonight watching the national championship on TV. It ain't much good, so I think I'll get back to fixing the nets. I said we'd keep it real, and that's what we're going to do. This is exactly how we do it. I get in here in the house at night, in the living room when ain't much going on. You can see down yonder, I'm tied off to the fireplace down there. The other end's tied off to the refrigerator in the kitchen in there. I got it stretched tight so I can get a good tie off on all of these knots. Show you what all you'll need. You know, if you're gonna fish hoop nets or get into this, you're eventually gonna have to learn how to repair these things, because this one right here, it hung up on a stump or something. When we went to pull it up, it just ripped a big gashing hole in the back. It looks horrible. Like, if you didn't know how to sew this up or tie it, you'd be taking it to somebody spending 10, 15 bucks to get them to fix it. You know, that's a bad one, but it's part of net fishing. So I like to keep a lighter with me. I got my net needle right there with some twine on it. Keep a knife with me or some scissors, either one will work. And I'll show you what we do here to get started. We ain't got much going on the football game. It's kind of poor right now. I think that BCS let us down again on that one. Got Danielle running the camera. Maybe she can get a close-up of this. It even stretched some of these knots. That's no good right there. We'll have to cut out all this bad stuff. Now this right here is a seam where when this net was made, the webbing was pulled in and tied together. Luckily we didn't get into that. Sometimes that gets a little more difficult. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna trim off all of this stuff that we don't need. I'm just gonna drop it right down there. You can see, I mean, it ripped her pretty good. So I'm just gonna cut all that back to what we don't need. And I double check all of these loops here. You know, if this is anything bad on it, I'm gonna cut it off. We'll make new pieces. And what the flagging is, me and Mr. Lloyd got out there and went through these nets this evening before it got dark on us. And everywhere where there was a hole in these nets, we just flagged it. So when I come back in here, I ain't got to do a whole lot of looking. I'll know where all them holes were. You can see how it really pulled this knot, like just jacked that all up. So that's not going to be any good. So what we'll do, we know we have a good loop up to here. We're just going to cut it up above that loop right there. And that's fine. I'm not worried about that too much. We can tie to that. So I've got good loop there. But you know, when we tie here, this one may have to come out. We'll see how that ends up. Yeah, this one's gonna have to come out here, like so. This one right here got pulled up pretty good too. You can see how it's twisted up tight. So we know that one got stretched pretty good somehow or another. It doesn't match. This knot should match this one. So we know that knot's no good. It's got to come out of there, or that loop right there is no good. So when I cut this out, when we get ready to tie this back on, you're gonna see I'm gonna start like right here, and I'll just make a loop, come down here, and then come over and catch this one, and then that'll be the end of that one. Then we'll have to drop down to here, come to here, and come over to the ones we made all the way to right here. So we know when we get right here, you can't tie on to this. So this one's got to come out too, like so. We'll see how that ends up down here. I think that may be right. All right, we'll get started sewing it up here. I've got a smaller net needle. I like the smaller ones, easy to handle for patch jobs. this number 18 netting, so I've got number 18 twine to patch with. We'll start the very top 3 loops. I'm going to go underneath, pull this down, leave me a couple inches down there of the tag line sticking out. I'm going to pinch that down, throw me a loop, come around underneath this mesh, through that loop, and then let that pull down tight. I'll pull it down, and I like to jerk it a little bit. That makes it tighten on up. Now, you can come back and do this, or you can do it right now. But to seal this off, a lot of people will just actually cut this and let it hang and dip it. I don't want to take no chance on this coming out before I get it dipped. So the way I do it, I just tie me a regular square knot, push it right up against that net knot. Takes a little more time to do this, but it's definitely a surefire way it's not coming loose. I burn that off, melt my nylon rope there a second, and just burn it, and use the metal on that lighter to just push that flat against that knot. Now, I don't have any problem with them tangling up. If you leave a big knot out here, yeah, it may get hung in another mesh somewhere. But that's how I start all of my sewing jobs there. And all I'm doing here now is I'm eyeballing this. I do have, if I'm sewing netting, I do have some boards that I can throw loops around that'll make all of these 2.5 or 1.5, whatever size, 2 inch, whatever size netting I'm making. We might go over some of that later in another video, start making some nets. But I just get my loop about like so I know I'm at the right size. Same thing, pinch it, throw me a loop, come underneath, cinch it down. Pull that one good and tight. I've got 2 loops there. Same thing here. Just like so. Same size, even with this one over here, about the same. This is 2.5 inch mesh. So all we're doing is just eyeballing and matching what we're already seeing. So now I'm done with that one. Now a lot of people you'll see come down here and tie a knot and come down here, then they may start swinging over. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tie me a square knot right here on this one. I do that sometimes, but not right there on that situation. Pull that one tight. Burn it in 2. Burn that down. Squish it flat. Now that's done on that one. Alright, so we'll get started on this next one here. Same way, come underneath, throw a loop underneath this end of the square mesh. Cinch it down tight. Go ahead and fix this end. It's an hour later, either one. Just soon do it now, be over with. Now I'll come up here and get this one. Try to make sure it's the same length as that one is. Pretty close. So I said this is 2.5 inch mesh, and that's 2.5 mesh is measured from knot to knot. I know all the net fishermen are going to know that, but a lot of the guys that watch the videos are new to this or had never net fished before. So stretched mesh would be 5 inches. That's from this knot to this knot. And then if you go square, it's a 2.5 inch square. So that's how we get our mesh sizes. Try to keep it all straight. You end up with better squares by keeping it straight. That's something else you gotta watch. If you, like I'm sitting to one side, if you pull to one side, you'll end up with a shorter side than the other, and your meshes won't turn out right. Let's come up and get that one. Come down here, the same size there. Make sure I'm getting the center of that loop. Tie my knot there. And match it up. Tie me one there. So, ended up just about perfect. All right, got an empty needle. Show y'all how we do this. Just make you a little loop in there, like so. Fill our needle up with thread. Get it ready to go again. All right, I'll show y'all how we're gonna fix this. This one's a little bit different. Like I said, we gotta put 2 loops in before we can close this gap. So I'm gonna start my knot right there. Same thing, I'm throwing a loop over, coming under and back through the loop. Pull my knot down tight. I'll come back, cut that tag end off later. Want the same length as that one. About right there. Now if this was just undipped webbing, you wouldn't have to pull so hard on it, but since it's already got tar on it, you got to pull it pretty hard to get that knot to cinch down good. That's why I'm being pretty rough on it. Now, this is what I was going to show y'all. So, this one right here now, these 4 will match up with these 4. So now we're getting somewhere. So you can do this 2 ways. You can seal this in, cut this one off, seal this in, or you can just come up here, just keep that the same length as that one. It's not going to hurt anything to do it like this. All you're doing just adding another knot, just a little added security right there. Then you come up and get this one. We're just working our way around to where we want to be. Is all we're doing right there, instead of cutting and making a bunch of cut ends. That's it. Perfectly patched hole. It just needs a little net dip. This one's a little rough. We're gonna go ahead and dip this one. I'll show you why. This is what I go by right here on the dip. You can see how this one, this tying in, this is what we tie in with this line here. See how it's getting pretty worn from fishing in the river? The netting looks pretty good, But this right here where it's tied in, starting to wear pretty good, that can soak up a lot of dip right there. So it's a good thing to go ahead and dip this one. If not, this is just gonna start wearing on in too, and we'll have to retie this in. You can see right here pretty good where a lot of this net dips come out of this twine. So we're gonna go ahead and dip the whole net on this one. But it's patched and ready to go back in. Well, that's a pretty quick 10-minute, 15-minute patch job right there to get this, and that was a huge hole. I mean, there's no way you'd have caught any fish in this net. Everything would have went right through it. So if you're gonna fish hoop nets, I'd suggest that you get you some twine and some needles and go to playing with these patch jobs and stuff like this. You know, just 1 or 2 twine pieces broke ain't hard to patch. The ones like this is the one you got to worry about, but you can save yourself some time and money, you know, sewing these nets back up and fixing them. Hope y'all got something out of this video. If you like it, like our content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Get on the bell when you subscribe and hit all so you'll get our fresh uploads. We're going to be trying to do 1 or 2 videos a week. That's going to be it for this one. God's Country Hunting and Fishing, keeping it real.